We are very happy, proud and grateful to welcome you, Professor Stiglitz.
In the first 3 years of the recovery, 2009 to 2012, this is the official recovery, 91% of all the growth went to the top 1%, which meant that 99% thought that it was a different economy. They didn't know about the recovery. Incomes adjusted for inflation today in the United States are lower than they were a quarter a century ago. So there's been a quarter century of stagnation. And at the bottom, the minimum wage is as low as it was 50 years ago. So a half century of stagnation. So, to me, when I see an economy that is failing to deliver for the vast majority of its citizens, that's a failed economy. 30 years ago, the CEO pay was roughly 20 to 30 times that of the average workers. Now the average CEO pay is 300 times the average workers, and there are many corporations where it's 1,000 times. When you have CEO getting, not only the CEO, but the whole management getting such a large fraction, there's less money to invest and less money to pay workers. So the inequality at the top, the flip side of that is not only inequality at the bottom and weakening of the middle class, but it's also that there's less investment. And so short-termism is become a real problem. And the consequence of short-termism is that there is very little long-term investment. And what you need for long-term growth is long-term investments. Before the crisis, the prevalent idea was that markets on their own were efficient and stable. And the idea was that, as I mentioned, the supply side economics, you take away regulations and markets were self-regulating. And people like Greenspan and Bernanke believed that markets were self-regulating. Now, let me make it clear that there was a very strong theory explaining why that was not true. That, one of the, I modestly say one of my important papers was to explain why it was that the invisible hand was often invisible. And that was because it wasn't there. And that whenever there were imperfections of information, asymmetries of information, incomplete risk markets, which is always, markets are not necessarily efficient, that Adam Smith got it wrong. The fundamental problem in Europe is the euro. You said one word.
Okay, it's clear.
The euro might be able to work, but you need a fundamental reform in the structure of the Eurozone, and not the reforms in the individual countries. It's the structure of the Eurozone and the rule regulations by which it works. You have to have a common banking union quickly that involves not only a common supervision, but common deposit insurance and common resolution. You need more of a fiscal union. You need Eurobonds. You need to change the European Central Bank from a mandate only to focus on inflation to something like the United States, where we focus on inflation, growth, unemployment, and fiscal and financial stability. One of the problems of the euro is that it's undermining democracy, because everywhere in Europe, people are voting for governments that say they want to end austerity, but then the Eurozone, Germany, says, too bad, your elections don't mean anything. You have to follow what we dictate, and we dictate more austerity. My recommendations for the euro, as well as the EU, is one of the ways to make Europe work better is to tax income at the top, wherever you make it, and wherever you live. If you're a European citizen, do exactly what the United States does and have an exit tax. If you want to go to Singapore, you can go to Singapore, but you have to pay the price. And use that for a solidarity fund for countries that are facing a crisis or for the addressing the problems of poverty. The microcredit movement in Bangladesh has transformed Bangladesh. And it's not only Grameen Bank, but BRAC. There have been several, there are actually 3 very large microcredit regimes. All of them with a different, they're not for-profit, they're a very different model, and they've been very successful in changing the nature of society. That is, if you don't measure the right thing, you will do the wrong thing. So we don't recognize the damage that we're doing to our future. And so one of the important things that this is reminding us is that the direction that we're going is the wrong direction. Adopting an agenda of global warming would strengthen the economy and reduce inequality. The reason for this is that the real problem right now is, for the weakness in the global economy, is insufficient demand, aggregate demand. But if we priced carbon, if we recognize the importance, the cost of carbon, we would retrofit, we would provide incentives to retrofit our economy to respond to that. So we would have enormous new investment in green investment, and that would stimulate the economy. You could get a stronger economy and less inequality by doing the right thing for the environment.